everybody, it's Mark Pattison. I'm back again with another great episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. And before we get to today's guest, let me jump in really quick and mention my website once again, www.markpattisonnfl.com. I've got a whole bunch of podcasts, 250 plus on of amazing people doing incredible things. So check it out. I also appreciate a ratings and review. If you get an opportunity, go to Apple. Helps with the popularity in the whole podcast world. There's thousands of them out there. So we're trying to make our way through all the dust. So any help you can give there would be much appreciated. I just came back from New York a few days ago where we did pull off a incredible 2022 Emmy Best Picture Award for the film that the NFL did on my journey up and down Everest last year. It was an amazing experience. Obviously, having a film is crazy, but actually winning an Emmy and being recognized for that in a very tough competition was a whole nother thing. We continue to raise money for Higher Ground, so any love is appreciated there. You can go to the website on the philanthropy tab and punch that. 100% of all the proceeds go to Higher Ground. I'm wearing that in a hat. Anybody can see that right now. And it helps people be empowered by doing things here in Sun Valley, New York, and Los Angeles. And that's what we're all here to do on this earth, is help others and pay it forward. So on that note, let's jump into today's great guest. I've got a little bit different. We're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about what it takes to be a champion and to win and do all those things. He is Colin Henderson. Colin, how you doing?
Good, man. Congratulations, Mark. What a big win. What an achievement. This is cool.
Well, look at, we're going to talk about mindset today, and that's, I'm not an expert. I haven't studied that the way you have, and I want to get into the way that you've seen the world, the way you've actually helped other people. But certainly there was never any intention to go out and make a film, to win a film. I was just trying to get healed 10 years ago, and through that, everything had a connection piece, right? There was a connection from deciding to set a massive goal. There's another connection of actually following through on that goal. It took me almost 10 years to complete 7 mountains. Originally, I thought it'd be 7 years, 7 mountains, but all kinds of obstacles came in the way, like COVID and like Mother Nature and other things like that. And then, a blessing was COVID in this case, from the standpoint of I was supposed to go to Mount Everest in 2020. That did not happen due to COVID. Obviously, COVID shut the whole world down. And so 2021 in January, the NFL came a calling and they said, hey, we'd love to make a film. And I didn't have any connection in my mind that they're like, you could actually win an award from doing something like this. And here I was on Tuesday night,
But that right there, my friend, is the best place to create art and do work. Is it's coming from your heart. It's not coming from because you want this external award. You're doing it because you care. So that's even better.
And that, you said that perfectly. And like so many things, it's coming from, in my opinion, from your true authentic self. And, like going back to my days as a young guy, I love being out in the playground. I love playing football. And I put in all these extra hours doing things that the coaches never required, just for the love of the game. And when I was fortunate to go to the NFL, I would have done it for free. I'm glad I didn't, but it was, again, it's that's the passion behind the purpose, behind the why, to keep going amongst all kinds of, I was brought in, I was cut, I was traded, I was all these things. And that's what helps propel people, I think. And you got to figure out that mindset. So how do you do that? I mean, I'm going to turn it on you now. Like, you've come up with these different systems and everything else. And before actually we talk about the actual XYZ of how do you, go about this, tell me the genesis, the origins of how you decided to go down this path. Like, what was it? What was your experience that helped you get there and learn some things and really figure things out so you could share to the world, your learnings of what you've been through?
Well, I'm sure you have things that drive you to get you motivated, do a podcast, to climb Mount Everest, to make films, to do your work. And what drove me is my sense of power comes from my pain. As a young kid, was into sports very much, had a family that was into sports. But I really quickly would associate self-worth tied to how I did in anything. Sports really was the main thing. So how I did in football, basketball, baseball, if I did well, I felt worthy. If I failed, I felt worthless. I just had this unhealthy link to I'm valuable if I'm good at something, you know. And my anxiety was just kind of would ramp up as I got a little older, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. And it got so bad, Mark, I used to stutter because I was so consumed by I have to be perfect. What are people thinking? Don't screw up. I wasn't present. I wasn't fully in the moment. I was judging my every step, thinking, how do I look? What are people thinking? And you know, I was the best athlete and popular and everything, but it just kind of got exhausting. You know, I had this struggle where I wanted to play because I was really good, but I always wished, man, it'd be so cool if I could just sit on the bench and just observe. And I had this pressure that I felt like I had this pressure that I had to perform. I'm a Cougar. I went to Washington State University, played football and baseball, so I had some offers across the country, but narrowed it down.
Do you recognize this right here?
That's the UW. Yeah, actually, well, I was gonna say, yeah, shout out to Coach Tina. I'm do a session with the UW Husky basketball team for the girls team, the women's team. So I'm gonna talk to the Huskies today.
Nice.
But I got love for everybody. But I just recognized I just had all this anxiety and pressure and this acronym FOPO, fear of other people's opinions, perfectionism, codependency, all these things I've learned now. I've been going through therapy for a while, you know, for a long time. I didn't have any tools, man. I didn't have any tools. So you can train your body, your craft, and your mind. You can train your body as a student athlete, lift weights, get stronger. You can train your craft, catch balls, hit in a batting cage. But I had no systems around the mind, how to be self-aware, how to breathe, how to stay in the present moment, things like self-talk, how to visualize, how to, you know, look at your core values and live in those and not worry about the outcome, you know, just having self-compassion, perspective. You know, I didn't know what that stuff was. I was never training that stuff. So I started in two sports, played two sports, was in grad school, was in business and sales. The market I was in, I'd sell to hospitals and doctors for like 10 years. Yeah. But like midway through that role, same patterns of self-worth tied to performance. I just hit a really rough patch where I wasn't healthy, wasn't sleeping. Did a lot of work though, changed companies, got exposed to a sales coach. His name is Frankie Pretzel. And he taught me about the power of the mind. He was a sales coach, but he's like, dude, everything's mental. Mm-hmm. You have all these business books and they're okay, but like reading books on the power of thought, you know, what you give what you focus on, you know, just some really cool things. And I never heard of that type of teaching before. And he gave me a bunch of books to check out, a bunch of thought leaders. And I just, for 2 or 3 years, I just devoured tons of content. Was healthier, happier, started set sales records, better version of myself. And I just wanted people to know the things I learned. So I started blogging, started writing books, and started speaking. And 2016 is when I started the work, and I've been doing it full time for about 3 years.
It's really interesting, like trying to peel some of the layers that you just threw out there. You're right. Nobody's necessarily taught all these skills. Your parents, my parents, you know, they do the best job based on what they learned. And as you keep going back in time, it seems like things were so much different and people were just in survival mode. And so trying to really think outside the box and be present and all these other things, you know, really hard to do. And so, and that's not a knock on any one of our parents or many of the different teachers that we had. It's just, they're just repurposing learning habits of what they learned from the people before them and the people before them. You know, you were talking about a coach. You can call this person a teacher. You can call them a, you know, instructor. I mean, I don't even know. It's just a label to me. For me, I was very fortunate to have Don James, who's the coach of the University of Washington Huskies. And there's been a lot talked about him. I've talked about Coach James a lot, but, you know, I really had to learn many things. It wasn't all things in terms of, you know, always being present because you're freaking out like you're going to lose your job or how do I get my job, you know, constantly that's going around. And there's such an important component around, like you said, the mental part of it. So first of all, being a person. Second of all, if you're an athlete, you know, how do you best survive? And if you could maximize everybody's potential without having all the other noise and things you can't control, I mean, think of what we all would be in terms of maximizing the best version of ourselves. And I think that's what we all want, but many of us just don't have the tools in order to try to get to that magical spot. I'm sure you've seen this in many of the different teams and organizations, that you have seen. And when you come in like that, like how do you get to kind of ground zero to make sure you bring everybody down to the same plane level in order that you can build them back up?
Yeah. Well, I usually ask the audience, how would you define the word mindset? So maybe Mark, I'll ask you that question.
Yeah. How do I define the word mindset? That's a really good question. I think for me, it has been being in a present place and being very focused and not letting outside distractions come and take me off course to get from point A to point B. And with that, there's a whole nother subset of daily discipline of going after the things that you want, to visualize those different things. And like I don't know like all the answers are in the checkbox, but those seem to be the things that have helped get me in these different things I've done.
So I heard you say presence. I heard you say focus, discipline, what you visualize, I guess. So mindset's actually neutral. You were kind of commenting on like a more positive, lens of how you view. So mindset is, if you can visualize a Venn diagram, two circles coming together, it's a conditioned set of beliefs that drive behaviors. So it's really three key words: conditioning, a conditioned set of beliefs, what you believe to be true about yourself, about your situation, about your story, about your environment, that influences your behaviors. Mm-hmm. So we need to understand that we're all have been conditioned since we were babies from what we see, hear, and experience. And that's creating a belief system. And unfortunately, our beliefs aren't based off of the truth, but off of our perception of that truth, which flows into our behaviors. So the work I do is try to uncover some old stories that aren't true about how you see yourself, about what you value, about your worth, about what you choose to think about, what you choose to focus on. So step one is just getting clear. Okay, we have to really do some real work about healing and overcoming what I call trauma, drama, daddy and mama stuff. We are all holding on to this baggage, this weight. And so it's helping people poke holes into these stories and then helping them identify, well, the best version of you, no one lands on top of the mountain, like the mountain you climb, Everest. There's a process there. So if we can pinpoint some behaviors that we commit to do and behaviors that we commit not to do, and that's a good place to start. But just like I said earlier in the opening, you can train your body, your craft, and your mind. Most performers don't know how to train their mind. So it's giving them daily drills. Just like you can get your muscles stronger by doing different lifts. Mm-hmm. There's different mental emotional lifts through journaling, through reflecting, through workshops, through sharing, through getting vulnerable, and really creating some systems on your self-talk, what you focus on in the moment, how to notice and work through anxiety and fear and stress and self-doubt and failure. But just talking, having these conversations, and then having a place to go, having a place that you can in the moment go, but also have a place that you daily prime these emotions and these thoughts.
Yeah. I think for me, again, I can only relate this to myself because I'm not an expert in any of this stuff that you're talking about, right? I've just tried to become the best version. And I know it's been a big, long process. And, I'd had hangups in high school and, I struggled through college, until I finally kind of got there. And then I struggled again in the NFL and then struggled coming out of the NFL to like, what am I going to do now? And all these different things. But I think if you wrap all those things up into kind of one big box, the thing that has probably helped me more than anything, and by the way, I didn't figure this out till I was 50, right? So that's 50 years of a lot of just like wading through a lot of muck, trying to figure it out like we all do. But it's learning, and you use this word, but learning how to become vulnerable, right? And that's hard because especially as a sports guy and a football guy, like many times it's, it's the view is more of this gridiron, tough, and really to, especially I had two daughters, which has been the biggest blessing for me,
Mm-hmm.
and really teach me how to like unwind it and be open and listen and be present. And a lot of things you talked about, but the thing that is so ironic about it is that at least in my mind, it seemed like I got stronger by being more open and more vulnerable to different
Yeah.
things that were coming through versus always trying to be the tough guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but because you have pride and ego, and your pride and ego can help you achieve great things, but can also kill you.
Yeah.
And it can also hold you back and be hurtful for you and those around you. But the quote I like to share, I learned from one of my mindset mentors. His name is Graham Betchart. And he says, victory goes to the vulnerable. Victory goes to the vulnerable. So if you can open yourself up, like you said, if you can be real, you can ask for help, or do something because you love it, not because you are doing it for praise, just like the film you made, and just let your authentic self be there. You know, success and failure, it's all part of it, and just not get caught up on the outcome. I think that's what performers, athletes get so hung up on. Is goals are great, but man, if your worth and your joy is tied to what you do, so the who is more important than the do. So living in your values, but also loving the process, loving the journey, loving the reason why Tom Brady is the GOAT is they ask him, why do you do it? Why are you successful? Because I love to play football. I love everything about it. I love the off season. I love, watching film. I love practicing. It's not just because the game and all the lights and being on TV, like he loves the process. So I think it's finding that balance of this empathy, but also we have to have results. I mean, you played for the Raiders. If you don't get it done, you don't have a job. But there's a better way. There's a better way to do it, to where you're a human being choosing to play football. This doesn't define you. So if you lose playing checkers, you probably don't care. But if you lose playing like basketball, like for your high school team, like you freak out. Like it's a game. It's just a game. It doesn't define you.
Well, I've seen this time and again, I'm when I make these different comments, I'm not perfect at any of these things, but I have gone to a number of Raider alumni events, and it is interesting that not all, but many are still tied to what they did 30, 40 years ago. And it just like that was there, and many of them are famous players and in the Hall of Fame and all these things, but that was just a moment in time, right? And letting that go on to kind of trying to transition that energy into something new, and you're not just all about that. You can be so much more, and that's where I've tried to continue to push and push. And again, I'm not perfect at any of this, but I've just followed my passions, right? And that is what seems to have helped get me, to these different places. And some people have said, "Oh, Mark, you're so lucky." And I go, "Well, my overnight success took me 10 years to do." Right.
Yeah, sure.
So it's never about that. You said something really interesting about Tom Brady. I so identify with him. And by the way, the other night at the Emmys in New York, he won for The Man in the Arena, which is a phenomenal series if nobody else has seen it. But I think the thing, like in our film, and I tie this back to Tom in a minute, but I don't know if you saw the film that the NFL did, but there was just some heartbreaking moments that on front of TV, in national TV, I was welling up, and I was talking about some stuff that's really hard to talk about, and they got me to that place. It wasn't easy, but I think that is what made that film relatable. Yeah. And then at the same time, in terms of loving the process, I was reading about there's a running back for the Rams right now who's 27. He's really good, and he doesn't really know if he wants to play anymore. He's 27 years old. He's at the top of his game, and he doesn't want to play because he doesn't truly love, and you're getting such a different answer from Tom Brady. And so the question is, when somebody seems like they have it all and they're right in the right vehicle, like how do you like, how do you train somebody and how do you teach somebody on getting the right mindset? Because when you're out, you're done,
Yeah.
right? You can't go back. Like, I can't go back and play football, right?
Yep, yep. And one of the series I love to watch was the Last Dance, and watching how Jordan get into the mind of another GOAT.
Yeah.
And I thought what was interesting is that he said, my escape was the basketball court. Where this running back for the Rams says when he steps on the field, like, that's massive anxiety and fear and depression. And where Jordan says, when I leave the court, that's where things get stressful and chaotic and I don't like it. The court was his oasis and his like safe haven. So if there's anything in your life that is creating these hurtful, these harmful emotions, and these, fear is when your thoughts become physical, your body keeps score. Fear is a physical response to a mental threat. So I would, I don't know this young man, but he probably could benefit for some deep therapy work and understanding. And there's some trauma that he has been through. And physically it could be a lot of things, mentally could be a lot of things, but you just have to have the empathy to understand that he's been through something that we don't know. And we can't judge the fact that this game is causing those triggers. You just have to accept it and have the grace and compassion and the empathy to try to help him. But we just don't know.
So let me ask you this. So you obviously are living this, right? You wake up in the morning and you go through your day, and I assume that you practice what you preach, right? Give me a day in the life of Colin when you wake up, and I'm trying to relate that to like how do you, like, just forget anybody else is listening to this, and then you and I are in a bar and we're having a beer and we're sitting, I go, like, tell me about your day. Like, what do you do? And I'm not talking about going to speak to the Huskies or something, that's the thing. But in terms of helping you along this path with the right kind of mindset, because you could freak out all of a sudden and say, oh my God, I'm not getting any work. It's a pandemic. Nobody wants me to come in. And now what am I going to do? You could go down that rabbit hole.
Well, I've actually lived that life. I started my own company in 19 and was doing live events all over the country in the Northwest. And then I had to completely shift my business model. But a day in the life would be, the first thing I do is I have the Glorify app, and I'm a person of faith. So there's a scripture. There's kind of like some writing on, what does this mean? There's a passage, then there's a time to reflect on the learning. So that's usually how I always, don't look at Instagram or email. I go right to there first with like a little bit of prayer. Depends on what's going on. I like to go to work out. I learned this from Brian Cain. He says, sweat before screen. So I'll get the work spiritually, and I'll try to get out a workout in. I'm way better in the morning with that. And then a system I develop is for mindfulness, is I get my work spiritually, I get my work in physically, and then I get my work in mentally. And it's called the HA method, HAW, that I developed, just looking at all the research, what the science says about wellness, well-being, and the mind. And so I breathe for about a minute or so. And then the H is I have. So I have just thoughts of gratitude, just like feeling emotions and thoughts of people, experiences, things that create joy in my life. And then I am is just affirmations, or just powerful self-talk, just giving myself some juice, man, some energy.
So what would be an example of that? Give me just one little nugget of something that would give you positive energy in the morning.
Yeah. So breathing kind of grounds me and gets my kind of body centered. And then I have, Lord, I'm so grateful for today. I get to talk to Mark. I love ice white mochas. I have 5 healthy kids. We're in Nashville. It's a beautiful day today. I had a great trip to Orlando. Feel so blessed. Just something that would be like gratitude.
Okay. Love it.
For affirmation, I am is like, I'm made for this. I've prepared my life, my struggles, the work I've done. I've impacted thousands of people. I love who I am. I'm developing into a version of myself that I really enjoy. I've overcome so much. Colin, you're built for this. You're made for this. Let's bring value today. Let's love. Let's serve. Just use language to kind of shape, again, trying to get your body and your mind into this peak state. Get your values, your words, your actions living in alignment. And then the I will. So HAW, I have, I am, I will is I set an intention for the day of if I were to win the day, what does that look like? And I see myself performing, executing what I want. And then I connect to my like dreams. I connect to like a vision of, for my family, for my career. And I go to the mind gym and I don't exercise. I got to exercise, and I start to create mentally, emotionally these experiences that I want to kind of create.
That's great. I mean, it's just all positive stuff, right? It's getting yourself in the right mindset to start the day, to crank it out. And I love that about, kind of self-talk. I could have used you the other night because I was my daughter actually, Melia, was firing me up. She goes, "Dad, you got to change your mindset." Because I go, "There's no way we're gonna win." Right?
You can't say that the stuff out loud, man. You can't verbalize those things. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I did say that, but I said that internally to myself, and really at the end of the day, I had no control over for any of this, right? But what I did know is that going back to what you're saying, on Summit Day last year, May 23rd, when I went to the top of the world, I just kept saying to myself, because I knew I was going to be in for a battle. I just kept saying, "I got this. I've done this. I've done all the preparation. I've done the work. Now go get it." And so that was a great example of what I did right. And then going and doing this film, which I had no control over. I didn't produce it. I shot many of the scenes, but it was out of my control. But I was just letting little frivolous things get in the way of me actually just sitting back and having a great time at the Emmys.
Cool. Yeah. And Mark, here's a question. I do a lot of these workshops, and if we just spend an hour on self-talk, I think that'd be life-changing.
Yeah.
For your daughter, for you, for anybody on your crew that you work, climbing a mountain, or just the mountain of life. I don't think we realize the influence that words and language have on us. So language, what we think and verbalize and write down, are the wardrobe of our beliefs. And on creating awareness on the power of words, what percent of human thoughts are actually negative, Mark? Do you know?
I don't know the percentage.
You want to take a guess?
Well, I mean, it's like if you're talking about what do I think on the planet, or what do I think about myself personally?
Just the average human.
The average human, I don't know, 30% negative thoughts.
Research from the National Science Foundation showed that 80% of human thoughts are negative and 95% of human thoughts are reoccurring.
Wow.
So we are recycling these negative stories, this negative image, this negative outlook. And that's why anxiety is the number one mental health concern in adults and teens. I mean, there's some things with your history of your family, but I just think we're just in this cycle of shame and guilt and fear. We're not even aware of it. These default patterns. So that's that's the rut I was in for most of my life. That's why I have to get these reps in daily to override and to start to rewire and to practice. It's really practicing. So, when you play for the Huskies and for the Raiders in the NFL, like, you were at your best when your mind was quiet. You're at your best when you weren't thinking about football. You were just completely in the zone. There was no judgment. There was no sense of time. You loved what you were doing. You didn't care. I mean, you did it not for the outcome, but because you love what you're doing. And so we should be training those ways of thinking, training that state. But most people just don't do it, because it's easier to go grab a dumbbell and start lifting than to sit in stillness and to be disciplined and start to focus your mind, even if it's just mindfulness, where your goal is to just not judge thoughts, but just quiet your mind, just focus on either a breath or a mantra or a sound. That is great training too. I just think we just don't have a lot of coaches, and we don't have a lot of leaders that really, okay, we're going to take 5 minutes for this, or we're going to prioritize the mental game for X amount of time each week.
So you mentioned earlier that you're going in to talk to the Huskies today, which is awesome. My alma mater. Are you finding that more teams, as people are trying to really get more advanced in their physical therapy and now their mental health and all that kind of stuff, they're starting to bring in more mental mindset coaches like yourself?
Yeah. Well, COVID showed that 2 out of 3 high school kids, I'm trying to remember where the research was from. I think it was from Wisconsin. 2 out of 3 high school kids were depressed and anxious. And I read some research from the NCAA.org that 85% of trainers say that their athletes, their college athletes are anxious. So it's like, if you're leading people, we need to be doing something. We can't just expect to just let them compete and play without training the mental stuff, or at least having access to, a framework to work off of emotionally, mentally. So a lot more coaches are open to this. A lot more leaders are open to this, because I think we're just look at the data, look at the suicide, and the stuff I do. So I'm not a therapist or a counselor. I would classify myself as a mental performance coach, mental skills. So it's prehab, just like you'd have the training room and the weight room. I'm more weight room. So we're gonna get ahead of this. If there's some heavy stuff like massive depression, anxiety, you would see a licensed therapist or counselor. But I think what has given me, to be relevant in this marketplace is I played college in 2 sports, I've lived all these things that I teach. And I think you have to relate the information to make it relevant, to make it sticky, to make it not too esoteric, ivory tower, academic. It has to be like, I'm a coach. So let's get on the whiteboard and let's draw up a mindset game plan for you,
Yeah, no, I love it. Before we go, I do want to mention you've done a bunch of books. That's huge props to you. I'm just trying to figure out one. I haven't quite got there yet, but The Quiet Mind, Master Your Mindset, you've got other books like that. But I can only imagine, not only is you're teaching this, you're living this, but when you put pen to paper, like you said, it's a therapeutic experience for you to really get your thoughts organized in the right kind of way. Big props to you. I mean, like I said, one's hard enough. I can't imagine doing 5. So, you're well on your way in that way. Where can people find these books?
Just go to Amazon, just search Colin Henderson, 2 L's, Colin Henderson books. And I've actually written 7, and I have 2 journals. So, and all my books. So my newest book is Quiet Mind, and it's not just a book that you kind of just read. It's a workbook. So it's got a lot of text, but Mark, I have a lot of space in there for people to, I don't know if this is a video, if you can see this, to fill stuff in, to get clear on how you're going to think, what you're going to focus on, your actions. So that's what my obsession is. Theory is great, but if we don't have tools to apply the learning, you just wasted your time.
I love this. The name of the podcast is Finding Your Summit, and we're all out there looking for it. I named it because I had to find my own summit. I'm still trying to find my own summit. It really should be called Finding Your Summits, because you get up and you come back down, and I've had all kinds of peaks and valleys. But we just need more people in the world like you, really. And I'm so blessed that you came on today to do this pod. And, if there's just one person that you've affected in terms of either looking you up or reading one of your books, or there's some positive messaging, something that you said today that turns a leaf over for them in their life to get healthy or to get their mind right about whatever they're going through, thank you. And so the last thing is, where can people find you?
I would go to Instagram at Colin Henderson.
Yep.
Or LinkedIn at Colin Henderson. I'm on Facebook, but dude, people use Facebook still. I'm on Twitter, C_Hen83, but I would say Instagram is probably your best bet.
Right on, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on today. You're a blessing, and I hope your word continues to spread out there, and go Dogs.
Oh man, go Cougs. We got love for the Dogs too. But I want to say, man, congratulations on what you're doing. Congratulations on your award. What an amazing team accomplishment. But I think that what you did shows a ton about your heart, about your spirit. So that is awesome.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. All right, everybody. There he is, the one, the only Colin Henderson. Thank you so much.